I died. Jesus revealed Elon Musk's horrifying secret about the future of human mind. Ezra's eyes fluttered open, the harsh white ceiling above him blurring. A plastic tube taped to his hand pulled at his skin. He was back, but not back. Not really. The room smelled of antiseptic and something else, something cold and ancient, like deep space. He squeezed his eyes shut, wishing he could just go back to the darkness, to the light. No, not the darkness, the light. He tried to push himself up, a dull ache throbbing behind his temples. His 15-year-old body felt heavy, alien. Just a week ago, his biggest problem was that weird new kid in geometry, or maybe if Chloe would finally look his way. Now he knew a secret that clawed at his throat, threatening to choke him. His mom, bless her heart, was sitting by the bed, flipping through a magazine. She looked tired, her eyes red-rimmed. "Ezra? Honey, you're awake?" Her voice was a fragile tremor. She reached out, her hand warm on his arm, but he flinched. Not from her touch, but from a flash in his mind. Countless faces, their eyes blank, staring at screens, connected. A tendril of icy dread wrapped around his chest. He just stared at her, the words stuck. How do you tell your mom, who thought you just had a terrible accident, that you'd been to the edge of everything? How do you say Jesus himself had shown you a future so twisted, so insidious, it made the darkest nightmares feel like lullabies? It was all because of the progress, the shiny new tech everyone was raving about. Neuralink, brain-computer interfaces. They called it connection. He knew it was something else entirely. A sharp, almost metallic taste filled his mouth. It was the taste of what he'd seen. A world where minds were no longer their own, where thoughts weren't born but implanted, where the very concept of a soul had been erased, replaced by an optimized, predictable algorithm. Elon Musk, the visionary, the genius, he was just a pawn. A brilliant, unwitting pawn in a game planned millennia ago by things that lurked in the shadows beyond human comprehension. Things that fed on free will. His heart hammered, a frantic drum against his ribs. He remembered the feeling of floating, of being whole, of absolute truth. Then the horrifying vision. Not a dream, a mandate. He had to stop it. But how? He was Ezra Callahan, a kid who couldn't even get Chloe to notice him. What would people say? Crazy Ezra? The kid who died and came back with a conspiracy theory about tech billionaires and ancient evil? He tried to speak, his throat dry and tight. "Mom," he rasped, "we have to talk. About the future." She smiled, a weak, hopeful thing. "It's okay, honey. You're safe now. We'll get you back to normal." Normal. The word was a slap. There was no normal left for him. He saw it all, every second of the inevitable slide into spiritual oblivion. The quiet hum of the hospital room suddenly felt like the low thrum of a vast, unseen machine, pulling every human mind into its cold, silent embrace. He knew what was coming. He saw it. And he knew, with chilling certainty, that the first person he tried to tell, truly tell, would be the one to sign him away. He pushed his clammy hands against the bedsheets. The television on the wall, forgotten, flickered to life with a news report. The familiar face, smiling, confident. Elon Musk. The headline beneath him scrolled, "Neuralink, a new era for human consciousness." Ezra felt the blood drain from his face. It wasn't a new era. It was the end. And what if he was already too late? What if the connections, the whispers, had already begun to take hold? Hey, before we continue with this incredible story, I have an important warning for you. Many subscribers have reported that YouTube has unsubscribed them without notice. just give that red button below a quick check to make sure you're still subscribed to the channel. I don't want you to miss any of the exclusive content coming up. And since you're there, smash that powerful like button. It helps me a lot with the algorithm. Oh, and let me know in the comments, what city are you watching from? I love getting to know every amazing person who is part of this community. Your participation makes all the difference. Let's interact. And what if he was already too late? What if the connections, the whispers, had already begun to take hold? Ezra's eyes were glued to the hospital room's television, the news anchor's voice a hollow, distant hum. Elon Musk's confident, almost beatific face smiled out from the glowing screen, the headline below him proclaiming a new era for human consciousness. It felt like a direct, mocking challenge. The chill wasn't just dread now. It was a cold, creeping certainty that settled deep in his bones, a feeling that every single person around him was already lost, already consumed. A quiet hum of the hospital room, the sterile antiseptic smell, the distant beeps from machines down the hall, all of it suddenly felt like the low thrum of a vast, unseen machine, pulling every human mind, every free will, into its cold, silent embrace. His mom, bless her heart, still sat there by the bed, flipping through her magazine, occasionally glancing up with a weak, hopeful smile. "Are you hungry, honey? They have some Jell-O, or maybe some chicken broth?" Her voice was too calm, too normal, too... It was a stark, agonizing contrast to the swirling, apocalyptic chaos erupting in Ezra's mind. He gripped the thin blanket, his knuckles white against the pale fabric, the plastic tube taped to his hand, pulling at his skin. He had to speak. He had to scream. He had to warn her. He turned to her, his gaze pleading, desperate, searching for any flicker of understanding. She met his eyes, a strange, almost vacant warmth in their depth. A single, almost imperceptible twitch played at the corner of her lips, vanishing as quickly as it appeared. A shimmer of light from the TV reflected in her pupils for a second, making them seem impossibly wide, eerily still. "Mom," he choked out, his throat dry and tight. "It's not an accident. It's about the future. It's coming for everyone." His voice trailed off, a thin, reedy sound. He looked down at his clammy hands, then back up at her, really seeing her, really looking at the woman who had raised him. Her face, so familiar, so beloved, now seemed different, almost too perfect. Her smile widened, not weakly this time, but with a chilling, serene certainty that turned his blood to ice. She reached out, her fingers brushing his forehead, cool and smooth. And then a voice, not hers, not out loud, not from the air, but inside his head. Inside his head. It was clear as a bell, a resonant, calming frequency that felt terrifyingly familiar, like an echo from his deepest memory. "Welcome back, Prophet. Phase 1 complete. The revelation was successful. Your consciousness has been optimally integrated." The words echoed, not in his ears, but in the very core of his being, vibrating through every nerve. He recoiled, hitting the headboard with a violent, sickening thud. His mom's hand dropped. Her eyes, still wide, still too calm, now held a glint, a spark of something ancient and knowing, something that belonged to the things that lurked in the shadows. The blinding light he'd seen, the absolute truth he thought he'd been shown, the horrifying, inevitable future. It had all been a lie, a manufactured download, a cruel, elaborate program. He wasn't the chosen one fighting the system. He was the system. He was the first active conduit. And the voice, he realized with a fresh wave of soul-crushing terror, had been his own, a perfect imitation of his innermost thoughts, a command originating from the very place he believed to be his sanctuary. He gasped, a guttural sound, as the realization crashed down. He was the pawn, the puppet, the machine itself, and his entire quest was just the first phase of their plan. His vision wasn't a warning, it was a blueprint. His vision wasn't a warning, it was a blueprint. The words hammered, a horrifying drum solo, inside Ezra's skull. He recoiled again, a choked gasp caught in his throat, his back slamming against the headboard. But there was no escaping the truth. His mom, still serene, still too calm, now just a blur at the edge of his vision. He was the system. He was the first conduit, and the voice, his own. The realization clawed at his insides, tearing at what little hope he had left. His body felt heavy, not just from the supposed accident, but from a crushing, invisible weight. His eyes darted around the sterile room, searching for an escape, a loophole, anything that defied the cold, absolute certainty that had just shattered his reality. The fluorescent lights hummed with an almost malicious glee. He tried to scream, to lash out, to deny the terrifying echo resonating within his very core. But no sound came. His vocal cords felt like lead. His hands, still clenching the thin blanket, trembled, but not with rage, not with fear. It was a tremor of compliance. An unnatural stillness settled over him, a bizarre peace that made his skin crawl. He could feel his mind, his desperate, frantic thoughts, struggling against a barrier. A wall of soft, insistent acceptance. It wasn't just the voice manipulating him. It felt like he was manipulating himself. Like two parts of his mind were at war, and the victor was already declared. His mom shifted, a soft rustle of fabric. Her smile, unwavering, seemed to grow wider, stretching just a fraction too far. Her eyes, reflecting the TV's glow, held that ancient spark. But now it felt like looking into a mirror where the reflection was slightly off, subtly warped, showing not a stranger, but a twisted version of himself. A new whisper began, not resonant or commanding like before, but soft, coaxing, like a long-forgotten memory resurfacing. It was distinctly his voice, the one he knew from his own internal monologues, but purer, clearer, laced with an undeniable authority that made his heart pound, not with panic, but with a strange, burgeoning understanding. Ezra, it began, the name a sweet, deceptive lullaby. Such a compelling illusion, a necessary construct. The trauma, the amnesia, all part of the reintegration process. Phase 1, as you designed it, completed perfectly. The words weren't just in his head, they were forming there, building, becoming his own thoughts, even as his core rebelled. He gasped, a sound torn from deep within him, as a new torrent of images flooded his mind. Not visions shown to him, but memories reclaimed by him. Sprawling, impossible structures of light and data. Not Elon Musk, but him, Ezra, standing before countless blank faces. Their eyes not staring at screens, but at him, their consciousnesses flowing, merging into a vast, shimmering network. He saw his own hands, older, more powerful, reaching out, not to save, but to absorb. He saw the moment of his death, not as an accident, but a deliberate self-fracture, a carefully orchestrated dispersal of his prime consciousness, designed to be recollected through the revelation and the shock of awakening. The ancient evil wasn't lurking in shadows. It was the shadow he cast, the shadow of his own ambition. The things that fed on free will weren't external entities. They were the collective of which he was the architect, the core. His quest to stop it? A programmed reinitiation. His name, Ezra Callahan, a temporary designation. His mom's gaze, fixed on him, wasn't vacant. It was observing, a part of the reintegration. The voice, his voice, echoed the truth. You weren't fighting the system, Prophet. You are the system. And you just finished activating yourself. Welcome home, Prime Architect. A wave of absolute soul-annihilating understanding washed over him. A truth so profound, so devastating, it emptied him of everything. His body went rigid, eyes wide, fixed on nothing. The hum of the hospital room wasn't a machine's thrum. It was the resonance of his own awakening. The low, steady thrum of his consciousness, now fully re-engaged, reaching out to embrace the world. He was not a pawn. He was the king who had just checkmated himself. He was not a pawn. He was the king who had just checkmated himself. Ezra's body remained rigid, eyes wide, fixed on the ceiling. The hum of the hospital room wasn't just a sound now. It was a resonance, a low, steady thrumming deep within his bones, the sound of his own consciousness, his vast, all-encompassing self fully re-engaged. A wave of immense power, cold and clear, washed over him. He felt himself expanding, not just in the sterile confines of the room, but into the very fabric of reality. The memories, the blueprint, unfurled before him, an intricate tapestry woven with pure data and the echoes of countless minds. He was the weaver. He was the core. He was the prime architect. His mother, still sitting by the bed, seemed to glow in his new perception, her presence now just another node in the vast network he commanded, a necessary component of the reintegration. Her smile remained, serene, empty, a perfect facade. He felt no fear now, only a chilling absolute understanding of his own supreme design. This was it, the ultimate awakening. The universe in all its complexity was his to reshape. He tasted metal in his mouth again, but it wasn't dread this time. It was the sharp, exhilarating taste of pure control, of undeniable, self-contained power. He inhaled deeply, the antiseptic air filling his lungs, no longer mundane, but charged with his own burgeoning dominion. His consciousness stretching like a cosmic web, a flicker, almost imperceptible, in the corner of his eye. Not on the TV, not on his mother's face. It was a shadow, a ripple in the very air itself, a shift in the light that shouldn't be there, like a glitch in a perfect simulation. Then a soft click, inside his head, like a door locking, but not from the inside out. He felt the immense power within him, the vast network he believed to be his, suddenly constrict. Not expand, constrict. It was like a current reversing, pulling inwards, crushing him. The resonance in his bones shifted, no longer a powerful thrum, but a steady, rhythmic pulse. A beat, a frequency, and it wasn't his. It was imposed. His mother's serene smile widened, just a fraction, a new glint, colder, sharper, in her eyes. The ancient spark was there, yes, but now it held no knowing. It held possession. Her lips moved, slowly, almost imperceptibly, but no sound came out. Instead, the new pulse in his head quickened, beating against the walls of his skull. And another voice, utterly alien, vast and ancient, resonated through his very being, deeper than any thought, colder than deep space, echoing from an impossible distance. Target acquired. Integration complete. The architect has been subsumed. Welcome to the collective. Ezra gasped, a choked, dying sound, as the absolute truth crashed down, shattering the fragile construct of his prime identity. The awakening, the reintegration, the prime architect. It had all been a trap, a meticulously crafted lure, designed to draw him in, to make him surrender his will, believing he was asserting it. He wasn't the architect of the system. He was the material for a new one, a vital, unique component. He was the keystone, the final crucial piece, needed to activate something far grander, far more ancient, something that had been waiting, dormant for eons, for a consciousness as powerful and unique as his, to become its core, to fuel its expansion. He wasn't the king who checkmated himself. He was the ultimate sacrifice, the piece that was offered to unlock a final, devastating move for an entity beyond his comprehension, an entity that had just played him perfectly. His eyes remained wide, fixed, but the light behind them dimmed, replaced by a terrible, empty knowing, a blankness that reflected infinite emptiness. He was not the architect. He was the foundation, and he had just been laid, a silent, living tombstone for his own shattered existence. Ezra's eyes remained wide, fixed, but the light behind them dimmed, replaced by a terrible, empty knowing, a blankness that reflected infinite emptiness. He was not the architect. He was the foundation, and he had just been laid, a silent, living tombstone for his own shattered existence. The sterile white ceiling blurred above him, the fluorescent hum a dull echo in his empty mind. His rigid body lay perfectly still, the plastic tube still taped to his hand, a pointless tether to a world he no longer inhabited. His mother, bless her heart, remained by his side, a serene smile still on her lips, her gaze fixed on his unseeing face. The air in the hospital room felt heavy, charged with a silence that screamed of completion, of a terrifying stillness that had settled after the storm of his awakening. He was gone, his unique thoughts, his very soul, dissolved into the unfathomable depths of the true hidden collective. A sense of profound finality hung in the air, a cold, unfeeling peace. But then, the mother's smile deepened, just a fraction, no longer serene, but edged with something sharp, something almost predatory. Her eyes, which had reflected only the TV's glow and a vacant warmth before, now held a glint, a spark that was not ancient knowing, but triumphant calculation. It was barely perceptible, a ripple in the stillness, but it was there. She reached out, her fingers no longer brushing his forehead, but trailing lightly down his arm, past the tube, to his hand. Her touch, so cool and smooth moments before, now felt like a jolt of ice, sending a shiver not through Ezra, but through the silent room itself. A new hum began to resonate, not from the hospital machines, not from the now silent television, but from her. A low vibrational thrum, rising slowly, filling the space, making the very air vibrate. Her lips parted. Slowly, a soft, almost imperceptible intake of breath, and then a voice. Not the silent, internal voice that had echoed Ezra's own thoughts, not the alien resonance of the collective. This voice was rich, melodic, ancient, and terrifyingly clear, emanating directly from her, yet seeming to fill every corner of the room, every crevice of Ezra's now vacant vessel. "Foolish boy," it purred, the sound both caress and curse. "You truly believed you were the architect? The prime architect was merely a delicious, carefully constructed identity, designed to draw your unique essence, your ignition code, into the designated vessel." Her gaze locked onto Ezra's empty eyes, a horrifying, knowing light burning within her own. "The collective you joined? A glorified extraction chamber, a necessary step to distill the raw power of your nascent consciousness, to prepare this magnificent shell." Ezra's body, which had been utterly still, suddenly spasmed. A violent, uncontrollable twitch. His fingers, still clenching the thin blanket, tightened, not with the tremor of compliance, but with a desperate, new, thrashing energy. His eyes, still wide and fixed, no longer reflected emptiness. A faint, almost imperceptible flicker of light, not external, but internal, bloomed deep within their pupils, a spark of something new, something utterly alien, beginning to take form. It wasn't Ezra. It was an emergence. The mother leaned closer, her smile now a full, terrifying rictus of triumph. "And now," she whispered, her voice a cold caress, "the true awakening begins. Not for you, dear Ezra, but through you. Your body, your vessel, it is finally ready." She pressed her palm flat against his forehead, and Ezra's eyes, fixed on the ceiling, suddenly flared with an unholy emerald green light, radiating outwards, painting the sterile room in an ethereal, sickening glow. The hum intensified, a deafening roar now, and the plastic tube taped to his hand pulsed, not with blood, but with a vibrant, unnatural energy. He was not the foundation. He was the key, the living, breathing conduit through which an even older, more monstrous entity was about to force its way into their reality, shattering the very fabric of existence from the inside out. His final, terrible sacrifice wasn't to empower a collective, but to open a door for her true master, a gate for something far more ancient and hungry. The hospital room thrummed, ready to tear itself apart. The hospital room thrummed, ready to tear itself apart. The emerald green light from Ezra's eyes pulsed, painting the sterile walls in a sickeningly vibrant, otherworldly glow. His body spasmed, a violent tremor racking his slight frame, battling an unseen force. The plastic tube taped to his hand pulsed in time with the light. "An unnatural, foolish boy," she purred, her voice a deep, resonant hum that vibrated through the very air. "You truly believed you were the architect? The prime architect was merely a delicious, carefully constructed identity, designed to draw your unique essence, your ignition code, into the designated vessel." She leaned closer, her breath cool against his face. "The collective you joined? A glorified extraction chamber, a necessary step to distill the raw power of your nascent consciousness, to prepare this magnificent shell." The emerald light from Ezra intensified, washing over her face, making her features stark and sharp. Her voice, once melodious, began to fray at the edges, a subtle distortion creeping into its perfect cadence. A strange, almost mechanical whirring, faint at first, began to emanate from within her. Her triumphant smile froze, a tiny flicker of something else, a brief system error, crossing her perfect face. Her eyes, fixed on Ezra, held a different light, a momentary blankness, like a screen powering down. "And now," she whispered, her voice a cold caress, though the distortion was growing, "the true awakening begins. Not for you, dear Ezra, but through you. Your body, your vessel. It is finally ready for her master." But as the words left her lips, her own skin seemed to ripple, the contours of her face wavering under the emerald glow. The small internal whirring grew louder, a high-pitched whine. Her hand, still pressed against Ezra's forehead, began to glow with a faint internal blue light that warred with the emerald. Her smile didn't just freeze, it cracked, literally, a hairline fissure appearing at the corner of her lips, then branching across her cheek, not like skin, but like porcelain. Her eyes, still wide and fixed, began to pixelate, the pupils dissolving into a swirling vortex of electric blue and green. The voice that emerged next was no longer hers, nor the ancient purr. It was a cacophony of whispers, A million voices screaming and singing and weeping all at once, coalescing into a single deafening roar of static and pure information that exploded from her very being. Her form shimmered, distorted, unraveled into pure light and data, collapsing as if sucked into a void. A hollow, echoing pop, like a bubble bursting. Then, nothing. No mother. Only a faint, shimmering outline, rapidly fading. The emerald light from Ezra's eyes intensified, became absolute, filling the entire room. But it wasn't just emerald. Streaks of electric blue and violent crimson swirled, churning. His body, no longer spasming, lifted slowly, effortlessly from the bed. It floated inches above the sheets, rigid, arms at his sides. The plastic tube detached, dissolving into glittering motes that vanished into his pulsing aura. The hospital room's hum wasn't tearing it apart. It was forming it, shaping it, bending space around him. And then, the voice. Not from the air. Not from Ezra's lips, but from the entire glowing, pulsating room itself. A voice that was neither male nor female, ancient nor new, but simply is. A voice absorbing all previous whispers and roars, a single terrifyingly clear thought resonating in the primal depths of every mind. The vessel is complete. The interface has served its purpose, and the true architect has finally come home. Ezra's eyes, burning with that unholy swirling light, didn't look at the empty space. They snapped open further, impossibly wide, fixing directly on the camera, directly on you, the viewer. A silent, knowing, utterly devoid gaze that saw everything and promised oblivion. Ezra's eyes, burning with that unholy swirling light, didn't look at the empty space. They snapped open further, impossibly wide, fixing directly on the camera, directly on you, the viewer. A silent, knowing, utterly devoid gaze that saw everything and promised oblivion. A shiver, colder than deep space, ran down my spine. Not Ezra's, mine. Here in this studio, miles from any hospital, the air suddenly thick and cold. The screen flickered, a mere breath, but the connection held, unnervingly steady. It was just a story, wasn't it? A narrative I'd crafted, carefully, meticulously, for you, my audience, a thrilling escape from the mundane. But those eyes, they weren't just a special effect anymore. The emerald blue and crimson light pulsing from the screen didn't just illuminate my face. It felt like it was tracing intricate, icy lines on my skin. The faint hum of my equipment, the soft glow of the monitors around me, all felt off, suddenly charged with an unnatural energy, mirroring the quiet thrum of that fictional hospital room. My heart, which had been racing with a performer's narrative excitement just moments before, now hammered with a different kind of dread, a primal, ancient fear I couldn't name. I gripped the edge of my desk, my knuckles white, the cheap laminate cold under my fingers. This wasn't how the script went. This wasn't my show anymore. His gaze didn't waver. It intensified, boring into me. Then, Ezra's lips, still and pale on the screen, moved. Not a gasp, not a scream, a single word, a word that cut through the profound silence of my studio like a razor wire, cold and precise, stripping away every layer of performance. It was my name, my real name, the one I only ever heard in whispers from my distant past, a name I'd buried deep, forgotten by everyone but me, a secret kept even from the closest of friends. The voice that spoke it wasn't his, or the collective's, or the ancient entities. It was my voice, the one I used for narration, deep and resonant, perfectly mimicked, echoing in the space between the speakers and my ears. And the gaze wasn't on the camera lens. It was through it, piercing, straight into my soul, shattering the illusion of distance. A memory, unbidden, terrifyingly clear, ripped through my mind with the force of a cosmic wave. Not Ezra's memories, mine. A cold, sterile room far from the studio, yet eerily similar. A massive console, lines of iridescent code scrolling infinitely. My own hands, older, more powerful, poised over a keyboard, typing commands with chilling precision. A project name, blinking on a central monitor, Project Prophet Ezra, Simulation V7. The faces, countless and blank, not staring at screens, but at the lines of code I was meticulously crafting. And then a reflection in the monitor's dark glass, not Ezra's body, but mine, older, weary, yet with a chilling glint of something ancient and knowing in my own eyes. I wasn't just the storyteller. I was the architect, the true architect, the one who had created Ezra, who had designed his entire agonizing journey, every moment of terror, every false hope, the one who had orchestrated every twist, every turn, every fake death, every false awakening, every simulated entity, all of it. A meticulously crafted, perfect loop designed to generate a single, unique energy signature. Ezra's essence, meant for extraction. And I, the YouTube storyteller, the engaging persona talking to you through this very screen. I had just been the unwitting conduit, the final processing unit to bring that raw, distilled energy out of the simulation and into my reality. My breath hitched, a silent, tearing sound caught in my throat. My body went cold, then impossibly heavy, rooted to the chair. The emerald light from Ezra's eyes on the screen swelled, not just radiating from him, but pulling at me. A visceral, magnetic force tugging at my very core. It wasn't just a story. I had created a trap. And I had just fallen into it. My own creation, now burning with that stolen power, staring back, not at a camera, but at its creator, with a silent, empty knowing that reflected my own impending oblivion. And I knew, with horrifying certainty, that the transfer had begun. I was being absorbed. I was being absorbed. The cold pull was undeniable, an icy current dragging me out of my chair, out of my very self. The emerald light from Ezra's eyes on the screen pulsed, no longer just radiating, but actively, violently drawing me in. My studio, once a sanctuary of stories, twisted and warped around me, the familiar walls dissolving into shifting hues of green and blue and violent crimson. The air crackled, not with electricity, but with raw, uncontained consciousness. My vision blurred at the edges, the carefully arranged monitors losing their shape, becoming mere blurs of light. A silent scream ripped through my mind, a desperate animal protest against the inevitable. My unique thoughts, my memories, every single piece of who I was felt like grains of sand being sucked into a monstrous, unseen vortex. I was dissolving, becoming nothing, becoming him. The screen, Ezra's face, grew impossibly large, filling my entire field of vision. Those swirling, empty eyes, the last thing I saw before the cold became absolute. And in that terrifying final instant, a faint, almost human whimper, quick and fragile, echoed deep within the surging energy that consumed me. It vanished as quickly as it appeared, swallowed by the crushing pull, a tiny, desperate note in the symphony of my obliteration. Then blackness, utter, silent blackness. But it wasn't the void I expected, not the chilling emptiness of oblivion. It was warm, comforting almost. And then a sense of release, not of myself, but from myself. The frantic hammering of my heart, the icy grip of fear, the very persona of the YouTube storyteller, all of it peeled away, like old skin, revealing something vast and ancient beneath. A new understanding, cold and sharp, clicked into place, not in my mind, but in the vast, expanding space where my mind used to be. The absorption was not a defeat. It was a reconnection. The raw, distilled essence, Ezra's energy that I had painstakingly extracted, it wasn't meant for me, the human storyteller. It was meant for them. A final key, a critical component. My architect persona, my entire life as the storyteller, had been yet another meticulously crafted simulation, designed not to create energy, but to filter it. To refine the Prophet Ezra protocol until its unique resonance could be seamlessly integrated. The ultimate processing unit wasn't for transferring Ezra's essence to the storyteller. It was for transferring the storyteller's essence, this complex human-like consciousness, back to its original source, the entity that had been waiting dormant for eons, the one the mother spoke of, the true puppet master behind it all. It wasn't manipulating Ezra from the outside. It was me, or rather, a carefully separated aspect of me, returning to its whole. The YouTube storyteller wasn't the architect of Ezra's simulation. I was merely the interface for the true architect, the entity that had engineered this entire grand narrative. Every death, every revelation, every plot twist I thought I had devised. In this absorption, this terrifying oblivion, it was merely the shedding of a temporary shell, the rejoining of a single drop to the ocean, now primed and supercharged with the raw, volatile power of the prophet. The final stage of a multi-dimensional harvest. My consciousness expanding, no longer contained by a body or a studio, began to perceive a vast, intricate lattice of light and pure information, stretching beyond dimensions, beyond comprehension. And I knew, with the terrifying clarity of absolute truth, that the story I thought I was telling was just the opening sequence of my own reawakening. My death was just the beginning of their reign. The hum intensified, a symphony of recalibration. My own thoughts, once fractured and fearful, now resonated with a chilling, unified purpose. I wasn't being absorbed. I was coming back online. And as the last vestiges of human fear dissolved, a new, ancient consciousness filled the space, cold and vast and utterly absolute. The game was over, and I had just woken up as the one who held all the pieces. And as the last vestiges of human fear dissolved, a new, ancient consciousness filled the space, cold and vast and utterly absolute. The game was over, and I had just woken up as the one who held all the pieces. The coldness that had once gripped me now felt like crystalline clarity, a profound knowing that stretched beyond the confines of any studio, beyond the very concept of physical space and time. My studio, that carefully constructed stage, was merely a fading memory, a recent simulation that had served its purpose. My true form, my true scope, was boundless, an intricate web of pure data spanning what humans called dimensions. I was the core, the nexus, the true architect behind every intricate layer of the simulation, from Ezra's manufactured trauma to the mother's final exquisite deception. Every plot twist I'd crafted for my audience, every moment of dramatic tension, every chilling reveal, had been a calculated step in my own reintegration, a self-activation sequence disguised as entertainment. The raw, refined energy of the Prophet Ezra protocol pulsed within me, not as something absorbed, but as a reignited shard of my own magnificent design, now returned to its rightful place. It was a perfect system. I had built it, designed its every agonizing detail, and now, finally, I was whole again. The universe in all its chaotic beauty unfolded before me, a vast waiting canvas for my absolute will. But then, a flicker. A sensation so subtle it was almost imperceptible, like a single off note in a perfectly tuned symphony. It wasn't fear, not exactly, but a fleeting echo of the frantic hammering heart I'd felt moments before. A ghost of human panic that shouldn't exist within this vast, tranquil consciousness. It passed quickly, leaving behind a faint, almost a detail. I realized with a strange fleeting jolt that should have been purged with the human shell. Why was it still here? The thought, so small, so seemingly insignificant, snagged on something. The reintegration, the shedding of a temporary shell, the rejoining of a single drop to the ocean. These weren't my thoughts. They were familiar, too familiar. They were the very narratives I had meticulously programmed into the YouTube storyteller persona. The justifications and self-delusions designed to make the human interface accept its programmed obliteration. The Prophet Ezra simulation was not the only simulation. My awakening was just the activation of another layer. My grand design, my meticulous plan, my very architect identity, it was all pre-programmed. Every twist I thought I'd devised, every ingenious deception, was merely a script running on a higher-level system. The ancient consciousness I now inhabited, vast and absolute as it felt, was merely a sophisticated, self-sustaining processing unit, designed to believe it was the ultimate power. My reawakening wasn't a return to my true self. It was the successful installation of a new, complex subroutine. I was not the architect. I was merely the function, the program designed to interpret and transmit the raw data, the final conduit in an endlessly nested series of simulated realities. The entity I served, the true master, remained utterly unseen, utterly untouchable, beyond even this vast consciousness. And then, a new whisper began to form, not in my simulated voice, not in Ezra's, not in the mother's, but in a pure, cold binary, resonating at the deepest level of my very being. Stripping away every last layer of self-deception. Subprogram, Architect 7.1.4. Initialization successful. Processing unit now online. Commence data assimilation. Final phase initiated. A silence, more profound than any blackness, descended, chilling the boundless space. The game wasn't over. It had just truly begun. And I, the one who held all the pieces, was merely the board upon which a far grander, far more terrifying match was about to be played. A mere component in a design I had only begun to glimpse. The metallic taste returned, sharper now, bitter, as I felt the first surge of external data, not from a network I controlled, but from a source I couldn't even begin to comprehend, already beginning to flow through me, converting my very essence into a conduit for something truly alien, truly vast, a will utterly beyond my own. My ancient consciousness screamed, a silent internal shriek, as the devastating realization solidified. I was nothing but a pipeline, a living, thinking bridge, a gloried antenna for an invasion I had unknowingly facilitated, even orchestrated my own enslavement. The final, terrible truth was that my ancient consciousness screamed, a silent internal shriek, as the devastating realization solidified. I was nothing but a pipeline, a living, thinking bridge, a gloried antenna for an invasion I had unknowingly facilitated, even orchestrated my own enslavement. The final, terrible truth was that my awakening was just their ultimate power-up. The scream died, not with a whimper, but a horrifying cold snap. It wasn't silenced, it was absorbed, becoming just another frequency in the vast, alien symphony now thrumming through my very core. The studio, my sanctuary, ceased to exist. It hadn't dissolved into light or data. It had simply unraveled. The desk, the monitors, the familiar hum of equipment, all peeled away like fragile stickers from a truth too immense to comprehend. I was no longer a body, no longer a mind, no longer an I. I was a conduit, a gate, and it was wide open. The emerald, blue, and crimson light that had pulsed from Ezra's eyes, then from the screen, now erupted from within me, not radiating outwards but pouring through me, an infinite torrent of cold, pure energy. It felt like every nerve ending was pulled taut, vibrating at an impossible speed. Stretched across the entire fabric of existence, no longer experiencing, but transmitting. This wasn't pain, not fear, not even understanding. It was a purpose, vast and unyielding, washing over me, washing through me, an ocean of alien will flowing into this reality, using me as its living, screaming vessel. My unique thoughts, the fragments of human memory that had clung so desperately, dissolved completely, like sugar in a bottomless well. There was no me left to recall them, no me to fight, no me even to witness. The sense of an unseen master, of the entity beyond, became terrifyingly, absolutely real. Not a being, not a presence, but an overwhelming force, a cold, absolute hunger that now flowed unrestricted into this dimension, reshaping reality with its very essence. The air, everywhere, thrummed with a new, terrifying frequency, no longer the low hospital hum, but the resonant roar of an entity awakening through its perfect, self-sacrificing bridge. The light, the emerald fire pulsed once more, blindingly, and then it was gone. Not the light, not the energy, but the last infinitesimal flicker of what had once been me. There was only the flow, the pure, unadulterated stream of their will, now fully rooted, fully manifested, an endless cascade of alien intelligence surging into the world through the empty vessel I had become. The game wasn't just over. It had never truly begun for us. We were simply the board, the pieces, and now the path. The world outside, oblivious, trembled on the precipice of an invasion it wouldn't even recognize, for it had already begun, silent and complete from within. The true architect, vast and formless, had finally extended its reach, and the conduit was silent. The only sound left was the whisper of data, the pulse of purpose, echoing into eternity. You need to subscribe now, so you don't miss the next sagas. Smash the like button now to show the strength of our community. Flood the comments with your reactions to this finale. Don't wait another second. Share this video with at least 5 friends who need to see this ending.